Hello, friends. I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is good. It is currently lunchtime, which means that in 24 hours we will know whether I have passed or failed this test. And, um, I took a practice test again this morning. I got an 89%. I don't know how I feel about that. I know that I feel like quite a few questions I were just memorization. But interestingly enough, I said like last week at some point we were just talking about my method of study and whatnot that I'm got really good short-term memory and that I can read, um, you know, like an RPG book and then recite it back to you, and that's true. And I can do that with board games. But today I didn't really study this weekend. I read, I kind of the class I took gave me some kind of quick study guides. I read those a couple of times, but I didn't put a whole lot of effort into really studying books or reading definitions or taking practice tests. I didn't do any of that this weekend. Decided to just chill, enjoy myself, and then focus my final studies today. Um, and interestingly enough, taking the test this morning, it took me about 3.5 hours to do. No, it took me right about 4 hours. No, 3.5 hours, which is quick. That's 260 questions. There's only 180 on the test, and I have 2 hours to do it, or 4 hours to do it. So I'm way ahead of pace there. But a lot of the questions, while the answers were somewhat familiar in my mind, the questions were not. But I know they were the same questions. Like this practice test is not like pulling from a pool of thousands of questions. It's the same 262 questions. They just shuffle them. And I'm pretty sure that the answers are in the same order. They don't shuffle the answers. So it's just they're shuffling questions. Um, Reading through each question today, I made sure to read through them slowly and understand them. Uh, I felt like I had a better understanding of what the question was asking before I looked at the answers. Which means what I mean by that is I didn't necessarily have the questions memorized, which I think is a good thing. I think that means that maybe the results are promising because I think I only have to get a 70 to pass this thing. So I'm well above average, and I think that I can pull that off. I feel fairly confident that I can pull that off. But my main worry was how much of this is just memorization. How much have I just committed to memory? The answer to that is I have no freaking clue, like none in the world. So I guess tomorrow we'll find out. Tomorrow I'll go see what happens. Hopefully I get to start tomorrow's video all excited and we can discuss how this all went down. But the other interesting thing is part of the reason I haven't been able to study is my brain has been like full gear trying to get me to work on software projects for setting up this new company. I know that setting up this new company is something that I have to do in the next 8 months. I also know that I have 8 months to do it, which means I don't need to do it right freaking now. But bringing back Pepahana, which was the software that I designed to help me do weekly reports, bringing that back in some capacity. It's not going to be called Pepahana anymore. In fact, I think I'm going to use one of the Corax names. Whichever one I use for the business, I'm going to use the other one for that software. I need it. I need to be able to do effective task and time tracking and invoice generation. That was the one thing that I thought I could really that would make Pepahana work, was if I could offer basically a free tracking and invoicing software for freelancers. It would be completely free for normal freelancers, but anybody else would have to, if you wanted to have a team, you would have to pay. I just never got around to doing that because I wasn't getting really any traction on the main thing, which was task tracking. I think I need to pivot that and focus on the billing part, focus on time tracking, cost tracking, and maybe now that I have a little bit more of a fundamental understanding of project management, I can infuse some project management structure into that software. What I have planned for that is essentially a complete rewrite, because there were aspects when I started that. I started the, let's do the MVP thing, let's do the minimum viable product, and I didn't have a clear picture of how I was going to introduce groups. I have a clear picture of that now, which means that database structure is completely different. Everything's completely different. And there are some key elements of how to set that up that I need to figure out before I set it up. So it's almost a complete rewrite. I think the front end I will reuse. That I can reuse and make it, because I spent a lot of time making the menu look good, making the cards look good, make everything stack and work really well. And I need to not shoot myself in the foot there, and redo all that work, because that was a lot. But ultimately, my brain wants to think on that. So where I was headed with all this, my brain wants to think about that. My brain is like, do this. We need to figure this thing out. And usually the way I quiet that, and I've told you, usually I write it down. I have chose not to write it down this time. Partly because I want to do the work, and if I write it down, I won't. Secondly, because at some point I need to learn how to manage those thoughts, and I've been just really focusing on shutting them out and not listening to them, especially while focusing on the test or practicing or whatnot. And I felt like I had pretty good control today with just a couple of days of practicing, trying to shut those voices out. So hopefully that won't hurt me tomorrow. We'll see, but. I'm at least not pessimistic. I'm not going to say I'm optimistic, but I will say I'm not as pessimistic as I was last week. So, tomorrow I'll let you know. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking and commenting and subscribing and being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is Machiavellian. It's an adjective meaning a somewhat unscrupulous and self-centered individual who is always looking out for his own good. We can hardly be called Machiavellian simply because we do what we need to do to hold on to the luxurious lifestyle to which we have become accustomed. Machiavellian. Machiavellian. I do want to point out that I skipped, this actually says an individual who is looking out for his or her own goods, and I, for some reason, completely skipped the or her part. That was my editing, not the book.